Welcome again to Sahara TV. With us in the studio today and to discuss one of the trending issues that has to do with the ECOWAS sanctions on the Niger Republic, Coup, the crisis in Niger, is the Secretary General of the Movement for Socialist Alternative, Daggar, Tola. It's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV.
Thank you very much.
Look at Nigeria's role and historical involvement in regional conflicts, especially in the West African sub-region. And the question is, what are the potential risks and benefits of Nigeria taking a lead role in resolving the crisis in Niger?
Well, I don't think any benefit can be seen in the coming period. There can be any benefit we can point to or refer to at any at this point in time. And when I say this, Nigeria was in Liberia with ECOMOG, and the budget of the statistics that regime announced to us as the huge wealth that we lost, fighting to defend, to bring an end to that civil war. Of course, the death of Samuel Doe, was possible on the basis of even using the ECOMOG, by Johnson. It's clear, it's there. Even when we return back, to the UNO intervention in Congo that mobilized various soldiers and Nigerian soldiers to intervene in Congo, that resulted into the crisis and the killing and death of Patrice Lumumba. We must not forget that part of African history. A new wave of radicalization, emerged from those interactions. To send Nigerian soldiers to Niger Republic, again too, it is not going to be a just shooting and killing exercise. There will be fraternal reaction. Nigerians rank and file soldiers will get to see the conditions of Nigerians and the reason why they think that what is happening should not be happening to them. And that in itself will also have a huge influence on them in returning back to Nigeria. And I think if that happens, it's going to be one positive influence. I use the word one positive influence from the point of view that Nigerians are extremely, not just Nigerians, Malians and the majority of Burkina Faso are angered to the Islamic insurgents that is taking over the whole of their country. And we must tell the Tinubu regime that a fire is burning in its own backyard. The Nigerian military needs to be repositioned. But like we also pointed out, in reposition, the Nigerian military does not resolve all of these issues because this question of insurgency, whether Islamic fundamentalism or guerrilla insurgency in any part of the Africa continent, is first and foremost a question of the failure of the ruling class to develop the means of production. So we must identify that capitalism, the private monopoly, domination of the wealth of Africa by few Africans, serving as agents for imperialism, Western imperialism, now represented by US, Britain, France, Germany, these are the crises. But like we have also pointed out, some new imperialists are now on the block. China is on the block. Russia is seeing this ongoing conflict again as another opportunity to extend its own frontiers, role and influence in Africa. And all of these new friends of Africans are not friends of Africans. Whether you call it China or whether you call it the Wagner group, the Wagner mercenary group. If Nigerians don't know, and this is the point we must tell all of those dancing on the street, even flying the Russian flag, calling for the Wagner group to come in. These people are cash and carry gunmen who again, are coming to West Africa on the basis of the wealth and resources in West Africa. Their interest is also in those wealth, how they could tap into these raw materials to benefit their own existence ultimately. So we must point out that we are opposed to this war. We should call on the trade unions, not just in Nigeria, in West Africa, in the whole of Africa, to come forward because it is working people that are going to be shot, that are going to be killed on the basis of this war. On a war to defend bourgeois democracy, that bourgeois democracy, since the decolonization of the African continent, its scorecard remains extremely very, very low, below 10%, on the basis of its failure to provide for the welfare and well-being of its own inhabitants. Africa is one of the continents that has the highest numbers of its inhabitants outside of its own continent, on the basis of the failure of the ruling class to provide basic necessities for its people. Electricity is not 24 hours round. We have seen the challenges we also have with even all of the modern facets of technology. Health, Nigeria, the whole of Africa still combats and battles malaria. And at every point in time when any leader emerges who takes the side of the mass of the working people, imperialism, whether in form of French imperialism or US imperialism, they come all out against such persons. One of the hangers against all of these persons in the whole of in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea is that there are French troops in all of these areas. It has practically not done anything in strengthening the hold of all of these states against the Islamic fundamentalist insurgents. And the reason for this is simple. French imperialism benefits from the crisis of war situation in all of these areas. It allows it more, to take all of these resources without being questioned. And it is this question that is now being posed against it in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and as well as in Guinea. And of course, in Mali, the troops have been sent packing. And in Niger, where they have 1,005 troops on ground, we have pointed out that Macron has already warned that if their interest is what is affected, they will deal drastically with the coup plotters. But they are now hiding behind the Tinubu regime in terms of the threat they've issued to the coup plotters.
Now, let's look at, still on Nigeria's lead role as far as this issues or crisis is concerned, and considering Nigerians' own internal security concerns. In recent time, we've seen an uptick in security challenges, a resumption in the brief law with regards to the security challenges Nigerians are facing. For example, we have reports of unabated killings in Kaduna, Benue, Plateau, Zamfara. And considering all of these, internal security challenges and the need for Nigeria to focus on its own domestic stability, what factors should be taken into account when assessing Nigeria's involvement in the Niger situation?
I think the very first factor that should be pointed out is that it will undermine its own ability to be able to take on the question of insecurity in Nigeria. And of course, it's clear that the Tinubu regime has started on a very wrong foot by making life more difficult for the mass of the people in Nigeria. The increment of the pump price of fuel, from less than 200 naira first to 520 and now to 600 plus. And let's ask ourselves, what subsidy existed when the pump price of fuel was moved from 520 to what? To 670. To 600 plus. Because the subsidy has been used, as an excuse. The Tinubu regime has announced to us that 1 trillion naira has been saved. The labor leaders pointed out that no such statistics exist anywhere at the end of the day. Because as we speak, all the question of palliatives that the Tinubu regime has promised, there is no concrete thing that is on ground. The only concrete thing that they offered was an 8,000 naira. Of course, when Nigerians screamed that would be rejected, the package was withdrawn again. We are heading, this is over 70 days that this regime has been in power. We are heading to a third month. So the suffering has increased for Nigeria. And this suffering will further worsen the state of insecurity, not just in the north, in the whole of the country. We must not just run away from we must not just think that the situation is just in the north. What is the situation in the eastern part of the country? What is the situation in the Niger Delta, where we have a Dokubo Asari, on the basis of his support for Tinubu regime, wielding guns? These are non-state actors. What lesson are they telling to the major state actors, to the military and the police? If non-state actors, who are even ordinarily civilians, can waste such power on the basis of their support for military regime, it means that inevitably we are approaching a period where private mercenary groups will begin to emerge in Nigeria. And this is why we have also said that, the mass of the working people must be ready ultimately to harm themselves, to defend and provide the security for themselves.
Now, are there potential alternatives for regional leadership in addressing the Niger coup crisis? And that you feel might be suitable or less controversial than Nigeria's involvement?
Well, there is a right to sovereignty, which Nigeria has always mentioned out. And by sovereignty and self-determination, we mean the right of those members of that particular country to determine their affairs. And from that point, we think that it is the right of Nigerians themselves to determine what happens to their lives. Nigerians, French citizens, US citizens, Russian citizens should not interfere in the domestic affairs. It's usually a policy. But this attempt to interfere in the domestic affairs of Nigerians speaks of an interest, of a selfish interest of those who are key, who want to interfere, not necessarily because they love Nigerians or not necessarily because they love democracy. Tinubu was quoted to have said that the best form of government is what? Is democracy. But for the mass of the working people, that best form of government does not translate to an improvement in what? In their lives. The scorecard of that form of democracy is that it condemns the mass of the working people to more penury. A bourgeois democracy, that fella points out, that denies even the ordinary people the right to be candidates and contest in elections against members of the billionaire club who think that politics is their private domain. Because at times when we provide this analysis, people think that we are making argument for a military coup. We must point out that we are opposed to a military coup, but we point out that police, the rank and file of the police, the rank and file of the military are members of the working people themselves, and that the ultimate unity of all working class members in Nigerians, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Guinea, in the whole of West Africa, can begin to lay the foundation to appropriately deal with the question of the insurgency and state of insecurity. And the best way to do with this is to put in place an economic system that will ensure that the wealth and resources of West Africa, of Africa, is nationalized, democratically controlled, and used as a basis to benefit and improve the life of the mass of the working people.
Our time is almost rounding up. We have less than 2 minutes to go. Let me just ask this final question. And considering the complex and delicate nature of the situation in Niger, what role could Nigeria play that complements the efforts of other regional and international actors? And what, in your view, will be the most effective strategy for Nigeria to make this contribution? Well,
I want to say that Nigerians do not rely on the Nigerian government to play any positive role that will ensure that this crisis is resolved in a way and manner that it will favor the mass of the working people. The Nigerian regime, as represented by the Tinubu regime, is out to defend bourgeois democracy in the Niger Republic on the basis of a self-preservation interest of itself and its continuation in power and the continuation of this bourgeois democracy in Nigeria. Our appeal must be to the working people themselves. And which is why we have said that the trade unions in Nigeria, the mass of the working people, must be opposed to this war. But opposing this war itself is not enough. There's the need to come forward into the political arena to organize the entirety of the working people in Nigeria, in West Africa, and collect, by extension, in the whole of Africa, to bind together with the rank and file of the military and the police, to take over political power ultimately on a program of socialism, on a program that will seek to use the wealth of the whole of the African continent, to develop Africa. When Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea says that an invasion of Niger is an invasion of their country, they speak to the possibility of the unity of the whole of West Africa. They speak to the possibility of the unity of the whole of Africa as a single nation state for all of us, where we can benefit from all of the diverse wealth and different type of resources that we have all over the continent as a basis to improve the entirety of our lives and fears. So our hope and expectation cannot be on the Nigerian government, cannot be on any of all of these governments that are lucky for Western imperialism or for French imperialism. And which is why our turn must be to the mass of the working people. The trade unions in Nigeria, led by Joe Ajero, led by Osifo, the TUC, must take a stand to oppose Nigerian intervention in this war. Non-Nigerian soldiers should go and die to defend a democracy that is not defending the interests of Nigerians or defending the interests of West Africans. And to that point, we must make quite clear that the Nigerian government should return back to Nigeria. It has launched Nigeria into a new level of crisis with the continued implementation of these neoliberal policies. And we must tell the trade union leaders that the attitudes after the last protest and giving the Tinubu regime a clean bill, to think that ultimately, when giving this clean bill, that they will meet any of the promises that they have given to the mass of the people. We have seen series of promises by previous regimes when the pump price of fuel was increased. And ultimately, all of these palliatives did not amount to improving the lives of the mass of the people. So we must tell the labor leaders, return back to our history of struggles against neoliberalism and deregulation, and point it out that the main problem in Nigeria, in Africa, is neoliberalism, is capitalism, and that we must commence organizing ourselves to bring an end to this monstrous, wicked system on the African continent. Thank you very much.
Daggar Tola, Secretary General of the Movement for Socialist Alternative. Thank you so much for appearing on our program.
Thank you very much.